It started like any other day. The sun peeked through the trees. The roosters had done their job hours ago, and I was out early, walking the edge of my land with a warm cup of coffee in hand. The morning air smelled like soil, hay, and a little hint of freedom. That's how I always described life on the farm. Simple, honest, peaceful. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine that I had a rhythm. Feed the chickens, check the barn, make sure the fence was still holding up. It might not sound exciting to most people, but there was something special about watching the animals move around, hearing nothing but the breeze and the soft clucking of hens. It was the kind of life you dream of when you're stuck in traffic or sitting in some cubicle staring at the clock. But that peace didn't last. It all started when a new neighbor moved in across the road. A lady in her 50s with short blonde hair and sunglasses that never came off. The kind of person who squints at everything like it personally offended her. We hadn't even introduced ourselves when she began her silent patrols. Every time I stepped outside, there she was, arms folded, watching. Judging. At first, I thought she was just curious. Maybe city life had her wound up, and she didn't know what to make of a rooster crowing before sunrise. But then the complaints started. One afternoon, I was trimming some brush near the fence line when I heard her yelling across the road. She was mad about the noise my tractor made. Said I was disturbing the community. I wanted to laugh. We lived miles from the nearest grocery store. What community? I tried to be polite. Told her I'd keep the noise down when I could. But it didn't stop there. The next week, she came to the gate, arms swinging, pointing her finger like I owed her something. She said my cows were too close to her property, even though there was a good 40 yards of open land between us. She claimed the manure smell was toxic and accused me of violating some sort of health code. I listened quietly, didn't argue, just nodded. I'd dealt with her kind before. People who thought volume made them right. It wasn't until a few days later that things really spiraled. It was a cool morning, the sky cloudy and soft. I was repairing a small part of the fence near the back pasture, hammer in hand, minding my business. That's when I noticed her, again, standing near the edge of her yard, phone in hand, whispering to someone. She didn't look happy. I didn't think much of it. Figured maybe she was complaining to a friend. But 15 minutes later, I heard it. Sirens. I stood up straight, confused. You don't hear sirens out here. It's just fields, trees, and dirt roads. But there they were, growing louder, cutting through the calm like a knife. Then came the flashing lights. 2 sheriff's cars pulled up near my driveway. Dust swirled behind them as they parked. Doors opened. Officers stepped out. I set down my hammer, wiped my hands on my jeans, and walked slowly toward them. And there she was, Karen, standing near the patrol cars with the most satisfied look I'd ever seen. Like she'd just won the lottery. She crossed her arms, gave me a little nod, then turned to one of the officers and pointed at me like I was a threat. I'll admit, my heart started to pound. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I knew this woman wasn't just being annoying anymore. She was trying to ruin me. And I had no idea what she'd told them. One of the officers stepped forward. He looked serious, but not aggressive. Sir, we received a call about suspicious activity on this property, he said. Your neighbor says this land might not be legally owned, and that there may be animals here without permits. I blinked. Suspicious activity? Illegal ownership? Karen stood off to the side, arms still crossed, lips tight, watching like a hawk. Smug. Sure, she'd exposed something. I glanced at the officers. They weren't hostile, but they were definitely waiting for answers. I could feel a tension in the air, the kind you get when things are about to tip one way or the other. I knew I had to play this right. No anger, no shouting, just calm. Still, it stung. I'd worked for years to build this place up, saved every penny, put in hours before and after my old job. And now, some stranger who didn't understand a thing about my life was trying to rip it all down because she didn't like the smell of cows. The officers started asking more questions. Wanted to see documentation. One asked if I had identification, licenses. Karen, behind them, had this satisfied little smirk, like she thought she'd finally caught the dangerous farmer. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her for a moment. Not with hate, but with disbelief. How could someone be so ready to destroy another person's life just out of annoyance? I turned to the officers and said, "Give me 1 second." Walked calmly back toward my truck. My boots kicked up dry dust as I moved. I could feel their eyes following me. Karen's I opened the glove box, pulled out a black leather case, and held it in my hand for a moment. My pulse was steady. Now, no anger, just clarity. I turned around, walked back toward them slowly, case in hand. The officers looked curious. Karen looked confused, and I didn't say a word. Not yet. I walked up slowly, the leather case firm in my hand. The officers watched closely now, their stance changing just a bit. Not tense, but alert. Karen tilted her head, squinting, like she couldn't quite see what I was holding. Her arms were still crossed, but I saw her smirk flicker. Just a little. Without a word, I opened the case and flipped it toward the lead officer. His eyebrows rose. His lips parted, but no words came right away. He reached out, took a closer look, then slowly looked up at me. You're with the Federal Service? I nodded. Yes, sir. Criminal investigator. I've been with the department for over a decade. On extended leave now, tending to my family land. Everything here is fully registered. I've got land records, livestock, tags, permits, you name it. There was a long silence. The second officer stepped forward, looked over his partner's shoulder at the badge, then at me. His tone softened instantly. Well, that changes things. I could see the shift in their body language. A kind of respect settled in, calm, professional, but clear. They weren't dealing with some clueless farmer anymore. They were standing on the property of someone who knew the law inside and out. Someone who wasn't just honest, but trained to see through people like Karen. And that's when it happened that Karen's mouth fell open, just slightly at first. She blinked, then took a step forward. Wait, what? You're a cop. I turned to her slowly, met her eyes for the first time that day. No, I'm a federal agent. Or was. This is my home now. She looked like she'd been slapped by the wind. The smugness drained right off her face. She opened her mouth again, then closed it. Her voice came out shaky. I didn't know. I thought something illegal was going on. The lead officer cleared his throat, politely but firmly. Ma'am, we didn't find anything illegal here. You may want to be more careful with your accusations in the future. Wasting emergency services on false reports is a serious matter. She stammered. I wasn't wasting. I just didn't feel safe. I heard strange noises and the second officer held up his hand. We understand. But we've checked. Everything's in order. No cause for concern. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. Her arms dropped to her sides, her jaw clenched, and her eyes flicked from me to the ground and back again. That I didn't raise my voice. Didn't mock her. I just let the silence do its work. She turned, slowly, and began walking back across the road. Shoulders hunched, her head down. No more shouting. No more lectures about manure smells or tractor noise. Just the sound of her shoes crunching the gravel as she disappeared behind her fence. The officers both exhaled, then looked at me with something between apology and admiration. You handled that well, the lead one said. Some folks would have snapped. I gave a half smile. Snapping's easy. Staying calm takes practice. He nodded. Well, if you ever decide to come back into service, you'd be welcome in our department. Appreciate it, I said. They thanked me, got back in their patrol cars, and rolled down the dirt road. The flashing lights faded behind the trees, and once again, the farm was quiet. I stood there for a long moment, looking around. Chickens clucked in the distance. The wind moved through the tall grass. My boots were still covered in dirt, my hammer still lying by the fence. The world had gone back to normal, but something had changed, not in the land, not in the animals, but in the way people looked at me. Later that day, a couple of other neighbors passed by. Folks I'd never spoken to before. One of them gave me a little wave. Another one nodded, said, "Didn't know you were with the feds." That explains the quiet confidence. I just smiled and went back to work. But the truth is, it wasn't about the badge. It wasn't about being a federal investigator or putting Karen in her place. It was about standing your ground without losing your peace. About showing that respect doesn't come from power. It comes from how you carry yourself when others try to tear you down. I didn't buy this farm to impress anyone. I bought it because I needed a life that made sense. A place that felt real. Every fence I built, every seed I planted, every early morning feeding, none of it needed approval. It just needed patience. People like Karen will always exist. They show up, loud and full of opinions, pointing fingers without knowing a thing about the person they're blaming. They try to drag you into their storm, but you don't have to join them. You can stay calm. Stand tall and let the truth speak, louder than their noise. That day wasn't the end of my troubles, but it was the end of my silence. Because sometimes the best way to defend yourself is by showing the world exactly who you are, quietly, confidently, and without raising your voice.